What is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome to On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and today is Wednesday, October the 5th, 2022, years after zero, and you are catching me just in time for another episode of On the Pipe Podcast. This is going to be weekend review with me. It's just weekend review with me. So we're going to talk about some things going on in the off-road world. We're going to hit National Enduro that happened this past weekend in Indiana. We're going to talk about GNCC that's coming up this weekend in West Virginia. And hopefully everything in between. So I want to welcome you guys on. Thank you for joining me for this week's live episode of On the Pipe Podcast. If you're listening to this afterwards, so, other words, if you are not listening to this live, that means you are either listening to it wherever you find your favorite podcast and you're listening to the audio-only version, or you're watching and listening along on YouTube, or you're live with us right now on Twitch. Either way, thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to listen to On the Pipe Podcast. Want to let you guys know, though, this is what we're going to aim to do. We're going to do live on Twitch. So, if you do not have a Twitch account, it's very easy to create one. It's very free to create one. They just have a way easier system to use to be able to do the live video, to be able to do FaceTimes, and things like that. So we're going to go live on Twitch to do the shows, and just like we're doing now. So if you like listening to it wherever you listen to podcasts at, then, hey, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. You can still get it wherever you're listening to it now. So whether you're listening on Stitcher, Spotify, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio even, basically anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find On the Pipe Podcast. So if you're listening there, fear not, you are safe. You will be able to continue to listen to OTP the way that you have become familiar listening with it. Same thing, YouTube, if you're listening to it there. The only difference is that when we do it live, we're going to be on Twitch. So you'll be able to hear it first if you are with us right here on this Twitch channel, and you will hear it afterwards. So basically, I just pull the video, send that over to YouTube, and then I pull the audio from that, and then upload that to wherever the audio goes. So if you want to watch it live, you want to be in the now, you want to chat back and forth, if we're in the middle of a conversation with somebody and you catch something that I don't, or just something catches your attention, you can go ahead and throw that in the comments and we can get your question answered live on air. Same thing if you're just watching this right now and you have any questions or you want me to hit on any specific topics. I think that's the cool part about this Twitch thing. You'll be able to comment it on there. I'll be able to see it pop up and we can talk about it real time and get a little bit of fan engagement rather than just throwing it out after the fact, and then you hear it and then you have no input at that point. So just want to throw that out there. Twitch.com/onthepipepodcast. If you go to twitch.com, you can search for On the Pipe Podcast. They also have an app. It's really easy to use. And yeah, like I said, the main reason is their layout, the way that you can control the video. It's just a lot easier. Like, watch, I can be in the middle of talking and now bam, got my YouTube video back up on there for you to see. This is actually shots that we're looking at right now from the TKO Hard Enduro. Right here's my main man, Aston, a beta factory mechanic, wrenching on David Garcia's ride. David Garcia actually rides for Mexico. Garza. Not Garcia. Garza. Rides for Beta Mexico. He came up and did the TKO Enduro. And then, boom, just like this, we're back to me talking. So just a lot easier to use. It's easy for me to manipulate it, move back and forth while I'm doing the show. That was my biggest concern, is how am I supposed to talk to you? How am I supposed to think about what I'm supposed to talk about? How am I supposed to get the guest on the phone and then switch back and forth between me, the guest, the videos, whatever we want to run while I'm trying to do the show? This has been the easiest solution. But anyway, check us out. Like I said, free to join. You can follow along on twitch.com/onthepipepodcast. to check them out live. So got some more people coming in, so welcome in. Thanks for joining us here for OTP. We're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna break the sponsors up a little bit. We're gonna spread them throughout the show. That way you get to listen to them. But as everyone knows, Beta Motorcycles is the official manufacturer of On the Pipe podcast. Beta Motorcycles has been family owned and operated since 1905. They manufacture the finest enduro, trials, and dual sport motorcycles that are known for their premium quality and rideability. Beta motorcycles are the best looking bikes on the market, and they back it up with their superior performance. Head over to betausa.com for more information on their available models, or to find a dealer near you to get yours today. Talk to the Beta boys. They said a lot of people stopped by their rig at the Des Nations and said a lot of people were stoked about the bikes. Dang, my armpits sweats really show on camera, so that's you get to see that live. But yeah, the Beta boys were stoked at Des Nations. They had the rig up there, they had everything on display. I know a lot of you were up at Des Nations, so I hope you got to stop by that Beta rig and see what was going on. Big news coming up for Beta. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about that in the coming weeks. But Beta Motorcycles has been the only and the official manufacturer of On the Pipe podcast, and we hope to keep it that way. So stay tuned. We'll have some news with that whole Beta and OTP deal going forward. But let's get into the Mud Daubers National Enduro. It happened this past weekend in Indiana. Grabbing the overall win on the day, it was little brother Grant Baylor, adding to his points lead, stretching that gap even farther as this season is just about to come to an end. Grant Baylor is clicking off these wins right when it matters. So Grant Baylor goes out there, gets the win. He wins the final 3 tests of the day. So he goes 2-2-2 in sections 1, 2, and 3, and then 1-1-1 to close out the day at the Mud Daubers National Enduro. And as I mentioned, that just lengthens that gap that he has in that first place spot. So Grant Baylor sitting in a very good position to chase down his second National Enduro title. So that's exciting news there for the gas rider of GB. In the number 2 spot on the weekend, it was Josh Toth. Like both, going out there, getting it done, putting down some consistent times as well. Starts the day off with a win in test number 1, which was a bit of a longer section, and then grabs another test win in test number 3, and then really just has some consistent rides throughout the day, and that's going to land him in the number 2 spot for the weekend. And rounding out the final overall podium position, it was none other than Ricky Russell going out there, getting it done. He won test 2 and also stayed consistent throughout the day as well. So Ricky Russell, I know, was pumped to get back on the podium. He's been coming on strong late in the season, really figuring these things out. So it was cool to see Ricky Russell up on the podium. So that is going to round out your top 3. Grant Baylor taking the win, Josh Toth in that number 2 spot, Ricky Russell in that number 3 spot. As we look to the Pro 2 class, we'll go ahead and segue this one in with our second sponsor, Steel City Men's Clinic. We've talked about them in the past. We've talked about them on a couple episodes beforehand. We were going to have the owner on last week, Bo Hamlet. He is a racer as well. You can catch them out at the races. He's supporting a team right now with Benjamin Nelko, and that's kind of the transition that we're using here for it. But Bo's actually out there racing himself, which is really cool. He was going to be on last week, but as you all know, and if you turned on the TV, if you turned on your phone, if you turned on anything, you know that there was a hurricane that went through Florida. So he was actually in Florida when it happened. I was actually in Florida when it happened. We did the show live. Stu and I did the show live from Florida. I was in Florida. He wasn't in Florida. But as that hurricane was approaching, so obviously didn't work out last week, but we will have Bo on next week to give you more information about Steel City Men's Clinic. But they're here to help men and women like you maintain their overall health and wellness. Steel City Men's Clinic is different from similar businesses because it is a medical clinic that was founded by a patient and a medical doctor who is one of the nation's leading specialists in bioidentical hormones. Steel City Men's Clinic understands the stresses and challenges that men face in their lives today and how this can affect performance at work, at home, and in athletic performance. They use the latest procedures and technologies to help you. So don't put it off any longer. A happier and healthier you is just a phone call away. And that's one of the things that I'm excited for Bo to come on and talk about. Talk about really the things outside of what you typically think of a men's clinic, as far as helping your athletic performance, dealing with traumatic brain injuries, dealing with the long-lasting effects of concussions and what that does to your body. There is a lot more that they do to help people out and get a healthier and happier and better feeling you. And you don't have to live in Pittsburgh. They're in Pittsburgh. They have clients all over the world. I'm in North Carolina. I am a client of, or a patient rather, of Steel City Men's Clinic. So no matter where you are at, they can help you out. They can do it over the phone. They can send the blood test kits directly out to you. So give them a call. Check out steelcitymensclinic.com. All their information and their phone number is on there. Let them know you're a listener of OTP, and they'll hook you up. But yeah, so transitioning into that, the Steel City Men's Clinic Honda Power Sports rider of Benjamin Nelko is actually the man who won the Pro 2 class this past weekend, and this race came down to the wire. So we'll put it out there. Ben Nelko grabs the win in that Pro 2 class. Benjamin Herrera, puts down a very solid ride, his best ride of the season on that Kawasaki in the number 2 spot, 10th place overall. And then Brody Johnson will round out the Pro 2 podium. But get this, Ben Nelko finished 9th place overall with a time of 127 minutes, 2 seconds. Benjamin Herrera, 127 minutes and 3 seconds. And Brody Johnson, 127 minutes and 4 seconds. That is right. The top 3 in the Pro 2 class were 1 second off of each other. So Ben, as we talked about before, dealing with some torn stuff in his knee. This isn't an ouchie. This is an uh-oh. This is an injury that would have a lot of people on the sidelines. This is an injury that would have a lot of people not getting off their couch. But Ben is out there racing. He was able to stay on the podium at the last round, and he goes out there and grabs the win this round. And after talking to him a little bit, it was after a quite eventful final test of the day, but he was able to battle through that and hold on for that Pro 2 victory, which he is the points leader right now. So those are some very valuable points as we get down to the end of the season that he was able to hold on to while grabbing that win. Speaking of trying to hold on to very valuable points, Mackenzie Tricker and Rachel Archer are in a battle for this women's elite title at the National Enduros. Mackenzie Tricker wins the battle this past weekend. She grabs the win in that women's elite class. Rachel Archer in the number 2 spot, and Brooke Cosner is going to round out your 3rd place position. So that is actually the order that they currently sit in the points race. So Kenzie out in front of the women's elite class. Just make sure I got the right thing here. 216 points is what Mackenzie Tricker has. Rachel Archer in the number 2 spot with 195 points, and Brooke Cosner in that number 3 spot with 139 points. So that is the way that it shapes up for your National Enduro Women's Pro points. 216 for Kenzie. Rachel Archer 21 points down with 195 points, and then Brooke Cosner in the number 3 spot with 139 points. We talked about Grant. We talked about the overall. We talked about Pro 2. Let's go back in and check on those National Enduro points. Grant Baylor, as we mentioned, grabbing some much-needed points, sitting in a very, 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 very comfortable position heading into the final couple rounds this year. He currently has 201 points on the season. His big brother, Stu Baylor, currently sits in the number 2 spot in points with 162 points. So Stu is 39 points down to little brother Grant Baylor. And then Ryder Lafferty has now moved into the number 3 spot. So we saw Ryder leading the season throughout halfway through the year before Grant was able to overtake him. And now Stu has been able to overtake him as well. So I believe Ryder's riding a little bit banged up as well. So hopefully we can get things healed up and we can see these battles continue into the future, especially now that we got Josh Toth coming on strong. We got Ricky Russell coming on strong. We got Thad Duvall getting back in the swing of things. There's a lot going on in this Pro 1 class. Next year, if Ben Nelko can hold on and grab this title, he'll be in that Pro 1 class. Jesse Ainsley, he's putting on good rides. We saw him win a Pro 2 championship last year, which moved him into that Pro 1 class this year. He finished 7th place on the weekend, so just behind Thad Duvall and Craig DeLong. So we'll see that continue to develop. There's a lot of battles and a lot of storylines to watch as this National Enduro battle, it really heats up. I mean, as far as the level that the guys are riding at. The times have been really close. The times have been really consistent, and it's really cool to kind of check on it throughout the day and see where everything stacks up throughout the day. But right now, Grant Baylor, 39 points ahead of second place Stu Baylor, and then Ryder Lafferty just 4 points off of Stu for that number 2 spot. And then our Pro 2 class, Ben Nelko, currently sits there in the points lead with 211 points. The guy that he is battling is the guy that is also in a championship race at the GNCCs in the XC3 class. It's Brody Johnson. Brody Johnson, 189 points in that number 2 spot, just 22 points down from Ben Nelko. And then Jonathan Johnson currently sits third place with 173 points. That is 16 points down from little brother Brody Johnson in that number 2 spot. So quick math tells me that's 38 points that he is off of the number 1 spot of Ben Nelko. So this race is far from over as well. There's still a lot that can happen. Heading into the end of the season, there's still a lot that can happen. But right now, Ben Nelko is sitting 22 points ahead of Brody Johnson. But keep in mind, 22 points is one more point than the difference between first and third place. So out there when you're battling the clock, every second counts. We mentioned the top 3 of these guys were 1 second apart. So Ben won. Ben Herrera, number 2, 1 second down. Brody Johnson, 1 second off of that, so 2 seconds off the lead. You got to think, that is one tip over. That is one mistake. That is one starting to test late. That is one, I mean, there's so many things that can happen. And when you're talking about the difference between first and third being less than 2, or right at 2 seconds, anything can happen at these final couple rounds as we round out this National Enduro season. So, that's going to be one to watch. It's going to come down to the wire. Like I mentioned, one more tip over throughout that day. Let's say it's a 2-point shift. That puts Ben in the number 3 spot, and if Brody was able to get in that number 1 spot, so that's a second shift from him, then that's 21 points, and now this battle is only 1 point away. So that is how close this thing is, but there's still a lot of racing left to be had. But that is going to round thing out for National Enduro. Before we move into the GNCC, I want to let you guys know something very, very, very important. And that is, just like always, just like every week, this episode is also brought to you in part by Zach Tussle at Raymond James Financial. Zach is a racer, and Zach is a financial advisor. He helps his clients win when it comes to retirement and financial planning. If you, or someone you know, wants to save and invest for their future, or is already retired and needs advice for income during retirement, Zach Tussle is always my first recommendation. Find out more by Googling Zach Tussle or on their website at financialadvisorsdenvernc.com. A few people that listen to the show have since signed up with Zach Tussle, and they will give you glowing recommendations as well. There are people on the front row, the frontline XC1 riders that use Zach Tussle for their investments and money management as you look towards retirement. Everyone thinks retirement is so far away, but what you don't realize is if you start building that thing up now, how well off you're going to be when that time comes. So I highly encourage you, reach out to Zach Tussle. He will give you some free information on what it is that he does and how it can help you. And it is something that you need to not wait, and you need to jump on it now, because it's a lot of good stuff that you can find out there, especially as it relates to your financial future. And the way that the market is right now is a very good time to get in it. It's a bad time if you had a lot in it before, but it's going to bounce back. It always comes back. But if you have not started any investments right now, you could not pick a better time. So reach out to Zach. He'll give you some more information and let you know how he can help you out. But this weekend, we got the penultimate round. I want to make sure. Yes, 2 rounds left. The second to last race in a series, or the second to last event in a series, is known as the penultimate event of that series. And this weekend, we have the penultimate GNCC. So we saw that Jordan Ashburn became the 2022 overall champion for GNCC. But there's still a battle that's going to be going on for the top 3 spots. Craig DeLong currently sits in the number 2 spot with 183 points. And then we have Ben Kelly and Trevor Bollinger, who are both out for the season. Right behind that is going to be Ricky Russell and Grant Baylor that will move in to the number 3 and the number 4 spot, most likely this weekend. But those two guys are only 6 points apart for each other. So when you start thinking about the future, when you start thinking about contracts for next year, when you start thinking about all that stuff, a lot of that is riding on your end results from the year before. We saw Jordan Ashburn take home 3rd place the last 2 years in a row, and got on that Magna 1 team 2 years back as well, and he ends up grabbing the championship this year. So right now, that 3rd place spot is still very much up for grabs. Ricky Russell and Grant Baylor are both right there for the taking, and both of them have been riding very well as of late. So that'll be a battle to keep our eyes on, but an even bigger battle to keep our eyes on is going to be what's happening with the rest of the classes. As we mentioned, the overall championship has been given out. Jordan Ashburn has the number 1 plate. That is locked in, verified, pictures of it. Carson with 10-4 Media gave us some videos of it for the OTP page. So if you haven't checked him out, I would suggest you go check out 10-4 Media. Great kid. He's at all the races. You've seen him around taking pictures and taking videos. So big shout out to him. Appreciate that. I wasn't able to be at that race, and he hooked us up. But you saw the videos, you saw the pictures, you saw the 2022 champion Jordan Ashburn holding up the number 1 plate. But there are still 3 other professional number 1 plates to be given out. And I don't think any of them can be given out this weekend because that's how close all of these battles are. They're going to go down to the final round in Crawfordsville, Indiana at the Ironman Raceway. But in the XC2 division, heading into the weekend, holding on to that number 1 plate, or excuse me, not that number 1 plate, the white plate. White backgrounds, green numbers. It looks sick on a Kawasaki. Lyndon Snodgrass is currently in that number 1 spot. He is sitting in a very good position with just 2 rounds left of racing. He has 231 points as they head into this penultimate round. Ryder Lafferty still holding on, though, in that number 2 spot, 193 points, 38 points down from Lyndon. But this number 2 spot is very far from over. I think Lyndon is sitting in a very good position, especially with how well he has been riding this year, 38 points ahead. But that number 2 spot, it's up for grabs. Ryder Lafferty, 193 points. Rui Barbosa moves into the number 3 spot for the year with 192 points, and Mike Wachowski bumps down to number 4 with 190 points. So 2nd place, 193. 3rd place, 192. 4th place, 190. So this is going to come down to the wire. Remember, we were just talking about as you're negotiating deals, as you're looking forward, as you're building up things for next season, a lot of it depends on those overall results from this season. Lyndon Snodgrass in a very good position. I was actually on Monday, went out to the Oz Ranch, the AUS Ranch up here in North Carolina with Coach Joshua Strang. Still not back on the bike yet from his second arm surgery from when we broke it back, I guess it was March in Florida. So he's came on the show and talked about it. We put a video out on our YouTube about it. Ended up having to go in for another surgery. He talked about that when he was on here for the ISDE episode that him and I did together. So right now is full-time Coach Josh Strang, and he has a fleet of Aussies and 1 adopted Aussie of Tyler Palmer that are out there training. Also an adopted Chilean of Rui Barbosa. So we were out. They were riding. I was filming, but Lyndon was out there. Rui was out there. So those two are very much in the mix. Obviously, Gus Reardon was out there. It was a good day of riding, breaking in some grass track. But what I'm getting at is Rui is hungry to get these finishes. Rui is hungry to move up into that number 2 spot. Rui has a lot riding on that. He came from halfway across the world. Lyndon came from all the way across the world, from Australia. So he has developed into this racer that he is. He has developed into having this race IQ that he does and putting it all together, and that's paying off because he is sitting 38 points ahead of second place heading into the final 2 rounds. But Rui, I think this was his first full-time year over here. So he's looking for next year. He's building himself up. He is still searching for that, and he is also in a position to get second place overall on the season. But Ryder Lafferty, as we mentioned, I think he's riding a little bit banged up. We've seen him win a race this year in the XC2 class. We've seen him on the podium. We've seen him have consistent rides throughout this year, and that is why he is in that number 2 spot. But unfortunately, at the last race, Lyndon, Ryder, and Mike Wachowski, going into the race, they were the top 3 in points. And after that race, they were the last 3 finishers in the XC2 class, which helped out Rui Barbosa tremendously. That Rui got a big gap in points, and that's how he was able to overtake Mike in that number 3 spot and get within 1 point of Ryder Lafferty. So very unfortunate circumstances for those top 3 riders, but when you get down to those positions, it's only 1 point difference. So Lyndon, Ryder, and Mike only gave up 1 point to each other, but Rui Barbosa ended up making a big gap on those guys. So 193, 192, 190. Ryder, Rui, and Mike Wachowski. All 3 of them still have a chance to be that number 2 rider at the end of the year. And I don't even want to speak it into existence. So we're just going to leave it at the number 2 rider of the year because Lyndon sitting pretty, 38 points ahead. So that's a battle that we're going to look forward to this weekend. And then if we look at the XC3 class sees Brody Johnson out in front. Now he has the outright lead. So keep in mind, XC2 is a Pro-Am class. They get 2 drops on the season. Brody Johnson currently sitting number 1 in the overall. So the total points. So total points outright, he has 276. Total points, Zach Hayes is in that number 2 spot, a former XC3 champion. He has 263 points. That's 13 points down from Brody Johnson. And then Jake Froman is in that number 3 spot with 188 points. So this has been a battle between Brody Johnson and Zach Hayes for this one. But as we mentioned, with the outright overall points, Brody Johnson 276, 13 points ahead of Zach Hayes. But that's when those 2 drops come in. Brody Johnson has a couple bad finishes. His worst finishes on the year are an 11th and a 10th. So right now, with Brody winning the last round, that drops his 11th place and a 6th place. So as it sits right now, his 2 drops are being used by an 11th and a 6th. If he can do better than 6th place this weekend, then he will drop a 10th place with whatever he scores this weekend. So if he's able to get another win, that will be win number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That will be win number 8 on the season. So I guess it'll be win number 9. He's got 8 now. So I guess I should have done the math on that. Maybe that title can be wrapped up when you start factoring in the drops. I don't know. Looking for win number 9 on the season. If he can do that, like I mentioned, that's going to drop that 10th place out, and it's going to drop that 11th place out. And then I think that lead at that point grows as we look at that XC3 championship that is coming down to the final 2 rounds here. Now, last but certainly not least is our WXC class at GNCC. Just want to give you guys a quick update on those ladies that are battling for a championship there. Currently, Rachel Archer leads the way. And keep in mind, this is total points. This is not without drops. The WXC class also gets 2 drops. So right now, the outright points lead belongs to Rachel Archer with 262 points. In that number 2 spot is Corey Steed with 255 points. And in the number 3 spot on the season for the points, it is Taylor Jones, a former 3-time GNCC champion, looking for championship number 4, has 236 points. So you think about it, and when you look at it, 262 to Rachel to 236 to Taylor, that seems like a big gap. But don't think too soon, because when you look at the actual points with the 2 drops, that top 3 is actually reversed. So when you take that out with the season Taylor's been having, she had a DNF. So that gives her 0 points. That's when you lose a lot of the total points. But when you take that DNF out and her other worst finish of the year, which, oh, hey, by the way, is a third place. When one of your drops is a third place, that's how you know you're having a pretty good season. But when you take the drops out, that top three is actually in reverse. So Taylor Jones, with drops calculated, is at 220 points. Corey Steed goes to 216 points, and Rachel Archer has 212 points. So that's why it's important to look at these drops. I wish there was a way where it was just automatically calculated on the results of GNCC to kind of keep it up to date with what's going on as far as like real time. Here's your drops, because amateurs get 4 drops, and so it's even harder to go through it and calculate that stuff. But when you do calculate the 2 drops for WXC, Taylor Jones actually leads the way. She is technically your points leader with 220 points. Corey Steed in number 2 spot with 216 points, and Rachel Archer with 212 points. So that one is going to come down to the wire. I hate to sound like a broken record, but, I mean, keep in mind, from 220 points, which would be the overall lead, to 212 points, that is a gap of 8. From first to second is 5 points. From first to third is 9 points. So and that's not even including the other drops, because you got to start calculating all that in too, because straight up, if you take the wins, let's say, for instance, Rachel Archer wins, gets 9 points over Taylor. She will then move into the outright points lead as of now. But as we mentioned, that doesn't include their drop. So Rachel would drop one of her bad results from the year, which is actually going to give her more than a 9-point gap. So, yeah. Basically, what I'm saying is this championship is far from over, and I think all 3 of these ladies want it just as bad as the next, and all 3 of these ladies are capable of winning every single Sunday. And so there's 2 more races left to go. Who is going to grab that WXC title? Will Taylor Jones make it 4 championships ever, or will we see a brand new champion this year in either Rachel Archer or Corey Steed? That is what we are all waiting to find out, and I'm excited to watch it. Keep tabs on it. I don't know yet if I'm going to be at the race this weekend. I for sure won't be at Ironman, which is a bummer. I planned to be there. I wanted to be there. I wanted to race at Ironman, but I will not be at Ironman. I will be out of the country. So, yeah. I don't know about this weekend. It's going to be a game time decision for me. If anybody's passing through Charlotte, North Carolina, you want somebody to keep you company, let me know. I think that'll be a big determination of it. But, yeah. Once again, want to thank everybody for listening. It does mean a lot to me. I appreciate you coming on, taking some time out to sit and listen with us. Whether you're listening to audio and everything after the fact, or you joined us live on this Twitch stream, I appreciate you supporting the show. And sorry we brought it to you on a Wednesday. Better late than never, but never late is better. We've had a few guests that were supposed to be on the show this week. Obviously, that didn't work out, so now it's Wednesday. The show had to be done. There's your update. Hope you enjoyed listening to it, and I hope you join us again next time on the Pipe Podcast.